Goody, goody, goody. Another Fractal audio processor release. So you know what that means. A whole nother wave of garbage reaction videos like this one. So let's get this over with. Actually, I'm making this video because I've gotten several questions and comments already, and this video is going to be a few days old when it does go up. So I'm sure I'll have more by then. Asking me what I think about the new Fractal Audio FM3 that just got announced. It's not out yet. And the information just kind of came out in the past few hours, so I may not be 100% up to date, but I don't think any information is really going to change my mind. It'd have to be pretty drastic. But long story short, like with the FX3 video, don't expect to be seeing this thing on the channel anytime soon, probably if ever, because I don't think this one's for me again, and I'll explain why. So on that previous video, I talked about kind of why the FX3 isn't really my deal, why it's amazing, and I love the concept of it, but even if I was given one free, I don't think I would use it in the way that I want it to, because you have to add on so many things like a foot controller and this stuff that I'm really spoiled with the AX8. So in that, I kind of said, well, here's my wish list. And a lot of the commenters left some great feedback as well in terms of what they would like to see in an AX8 successor. And basically it looked like this awful Photoshop that I did. And basically what I wanted was put FX3 firmware on all the good stuff with this, and then make everything else like the Line 6 Helix, what they did correctly. I would have liked an expression pedal. They're wanting to sell their own. I understand that. Some people said they don't really want that. I get that too. So being a modular thing, I can understand that. There was a few other like whiny wish list items for me, like putting the power up front, which as you see, they didn't do here, but not a big deal. But the main thing I wanted was just like, do this again, just update it. Make it a little more powerful if capable. More so I was worried about the channel features with the amplifiers, which it looks like we've gotten. 2 amp blocks would have been cool, but not a killer feature for me. But what I really like about the AX8 as a package is it just kind of works with anything and everything in the way that I use it. Whether I'm sitting here recording direct, making tones that way, or a 4-cable method with an amplifier, or plugging straight into a power amp, you can still kind of use it like an amplifier. And I think that's a good thing for people that maybe shy away from modelers a little more, where you can still dial up the drive and bass and treble and mids, all that physically. Even if it is, rotary knobs, it still provides kind of a different feeling. And with the foot switches, I'm so spoiled to these. Like, I use this to turn on and off blocks. Usually it's scene changes if it's for a preset I've made and I'm kind of comfortable with. But like, I need this functionality. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And there were some other things that if they made this larger, I would have liked to see another stereo effects loop. That way you can kind of do the in-out routing that you can do on the FX3, mainly just be able to do like 4-cable method and then still send it out to another power amp. But these niche features that I wasn't necessarily expecting, but I would really just wanted them to expand upon this. And that's why with the FM3, it's hard to really say this is a successor to the AX8, because this doesn't really scratch the same itch for me. And truthfully, if this is the route they're going to pursue to, legitimately replace all their floorboard units, then, I'm a little selfishly disappointed, to say the least, but we'll get into all that. So let's talk about the things that we got right. I think pretty much everyone predicted the screen, instead of this monochrome green and black mess we have on the older FX products. You got the lovely FX3 screen that I think does just a good job, not better than the Line 6 stuff, so that's great. I have, messed around with them. I like the navigation, and with that, they brought along the controls, which was another kind of sticking point with me on this unit in particular. You get used to it, but having to hit a shift button to make the pages go back and forth, and all the navigation and the individual buttons just didn't feel very fluid. Is a little clunky. With this, definite improvement there. But the overall package is kind of tiny compared to this. It looks like they've lopped off a good portion of it to where you're only getting 3 foot switches. And Jesus, that's loud. And that's a problem for me. And I think this represents kind of a shift in the way they're going to go after this. So you only have a scenes presets and effects, and that's almost like only having F1, F2, and F3 on here. And I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure they'll figure something out to make navigation not a complete pain in the ass. But if you want that kind of, you know, have all of your effects right there at a foot switch, or if you want to be able to change scenes immediately and look down and see it on your screen, then I have a feeling this is going to be a bit more cumbersome. They've also moved the tempo and tuner from what used to be F3 here to a physical button. Again, that's a problem for me because the way I use this, I tap tempo all the time. So if I'm like practicing quietly, just plugging directly into here, and this is setting on the floor, and I've got it routed through my interface, then I'll generally just tap out the tempo if I've got like a delay or something in the background. So that's going to be sorely missed, as well as using the tuner function. I know you can access it through Accedit and all that, but I constantly use it in that way. It's why it's always sitting right in front of me there. There's a number of considerable upgrades to the I/O, and the only thing it looks like we're sacrificing is 2 pedal inputs, which who's using 4 pedals with this anyway? I think 2 is more than enough for 99% of players, so good call there. But we gain a headphone jack, which is a huge win. I think everyone, including myself, was asking for that on the successor of this thing because it would have been so nice. Obviously, the regular outputs just don't cut it for driving even, you know, a good pair of headphones that you've coupled together. Just the impedance mismatch just doesn't work. So definitely glad to have that. You also have a FastLink 2 connector for connecting the FC6 and 12 floorboards, which kind of is, I think, their solution to solving this problem. But that's one that I'm not a huge fan of, but more on that in a minute. And for the USB connectivity, another huge win here, as there's 4x4 USB audio. So that thing is a little more useful than just, you know, editing parameters over Accedit, which is really great. Because, you know, for me, I record over SPDIF anyway, it's not a big deal. But if you want to take this thing on the go with you, or you simply don't want to use another interface because not everyone needs something to handle microphones, then this is all you need. Presumably. So that is a great feature that obviously a lot of people were asking for in this generation, and it was one that made it harder for me to recommend this unit to a lot of players. And I think this is kind of the complement to that. And I will definitely praise it for what it does in that respect, because, you know, not everyone needs all these features that I'm talking about that I can't live without in terms of the foot switches and stuff. Not everyone needs physical amp controls. I don't need them, but they're just kind of cool to have. And so I think this is like the perfect new entry place for most people to the Fractal Audio universe, because in a weird way, I kind of view this thing as almost an indirect competitor, or at the very least a stepping stone from something like the Line 6 HX Stomp. Obviously, you can draw plenty of comparisons with their physical representations. If I can enlarge this a little bit, but they both kind of got the same sort of 3-foot switch operation. My crappy internet browser isn't going to load this all the way, but you know, same screen, you know, idea. The navigation is going to be fairly similar. Obviously, you're a lot more limited on this device versus here in terms of power and in terms of navigation and everything. I mean, the buttons dwarf this, but I think you only get like 6 or 8 blocks, something like that, on the HX Stomp. And in my opinion, the Helix algorithms just aren't as good as Axe-Fx 2 even. So the sound quality isn't quite there. Is it good? Is it worth the money? I think for a lot of players, yeah, $600. This is kind of the bigger version of that, where yes, in theory, you can use this as a floorboard, but I don't think it's really ready out of the box. To make the FM3 do what the AX8 does out of the box, and presumably a lot of people will want that considering how well the AX8 is sold, how many people use it for gigs, that $1,000 cost will fairly quickly turn into a $1,500 cost to add the FC6, and you're still missing 2 switches. Presumably, again, you'll be able to have a lot of functionality with these 3 switches to where it won't be terribly missed, but I still want to have basically everything at, you know, one screen level. If I want to turn a drive block on or off, or flip the amp model or something like that, then, you know, I don't think this is going to cover it. And the cost really isn't even a deal breaker for me, because you got stuff like the Line 6 Helix that brand new is going for pretty much the same, $1,600, and the AX8 was going for about that. Obviously, you got some of those other quality of life features, but for the amp modeler quality and everything you can do on the Axe-Fx stuff, that's fine. What I take issue with for my purposes is that it's really not an upgrade in power. In fact, it was confirmed on the Fractal forums that it's basically the same as the AX8 in terms of power, being able to handle the CPU load. And yeah, I understand they're locked thermally in terms of their compact design. If you are going to do a passively cooled system like this, that's pretty much as far as you can go. What I would have loved to seen, as I said in the last video, is that make a thicker floorboard, make the big daddy version, and put some fans in it. Maybe that'll piss some people off, but you know, we're at the point where laptop manufacturers are putting desktop parts into laptops, and they're thick, don't get me wrong. They're not something I would consider a mobile laptop, but they're still tiny compared to what the AX8 is. So it can be done with, you know, clever power design and as well as cooling design. Obviously, I wouldn't expect a guitar effects company to be, you know, have expertise in that, but it's probably worth looking into in later generations to maybe contract that out, see if someone can do some sort of heat pipe design for upcoming units if you are that constrained. That's going to add cost, but frankly, I would pay for it in a heartbeat. Obviously, with sacrificing some of this DSP overhead comes sacrificing some blocks, just like we did with the AX8, one of which is equally as devastating as last generation with the tone match blocks. So no tone matches on a floorboard, which sucks to me. Honestly, I wouldn't mind if it had the tone match capability as much as if you could just download other people's tone matches. There's workarounds, they're kind of a pain in the ass, and the easy way doesn't sound nearly as good. And the other way, again, kind of relies on the community to help those out that don't have the hardware. So that kind of sucks. The other ones, you know, vocoder or some of the other random ones, like I think the 10 tap delay isn't there. Not the biggest deal in the world, but you lose multiple instances of some blocks where normally you could have 4. Now you're, you know, limited to 2 here. For 99% of players, not going to be a big deal. You lose that additional amp block. Again, not a huge deal to a vast majority of players, but it's one of those things that other, you know, like the Line 6 Helix, other amp modelers do have it. Lower quality, yes, but they do have it. And to non-discerning ears, you know, that's going to be a big marketing point. With all that in mind, I kind of view the FM3 as a side grade at best for AX8 users. For a lot of things, obviously they'll nail it with the Axe 3 quality modeling, with the Aries stuff. We're going to get a whole lot of other, you know, quality of life features, especially the navigation from the Axe 3. A lot of things are more or less equal to the AX8. And there's some things in the way that I want it to work are a complete downgrade. But that's, I think, the fallacy of directly comparing this. I don't necessarily think they're trying to replace the AX8 right now. I feel like this is a lower tier than that. And so with that, I feel that even without hearing this thing, I can say confidently, this is probably the best place to start with the Fractal audio universe for newcomers. From here on forward, unless you want to use an amplifier and 4-cable method the way I do, or you want all this other stuff that I like about the AX8, this one's going to make way more sense, especially for the money, and presumably it'll get a little cheaper over time. So it kind of confuses me why a lot of AX8 users are on, you know, are so hot and heavy on this, other than it is new, which is fine, I suppose, but I could totally foresee there being an in-between step. Just like this is kind of the HX stop for Fractal audio, I could see there being a more Helix LT, full-blown Helix style Axe 3 floorboard for, you know, $1,500, $1,600. That's the one I'm interested in. This one, not so much. Ultimately, I think we're seeing a new tier of product from Fractal Audio. I could be wrong, but I honestly could see, considering how quickly this came after the Axe 3, was it been like a year, that within the next year or so, we see a you know, kind of an expanded version of this in a larger floorboard. Don't know, but that would be my prediction at this point in time. And I guess the major message with this video is number one, if you bought an AX8 recently, don't feel bad because this isn't going to do all that much more. The recording capabilities and that kind of stuff, yeah, that's kind of a bummer. But with everything else, if you have any use for the physical amp controls or the foot switches like I do, I don't think it really scratches the same itch. With that said, if you don't care about that stuff and you've been looking in this tier of amp modelers at around the $1,000 price point. You want something to desktop record with, and you want something that you could, you know, kind of navigate with a few foot switches. Damn, that's a good value. And I won't even need to hear it, and I can tell you it'll be worth it for those that like that stuff. So with that, I suppose I'll be sitting this one out as well, and unless my very optimistic prediction comes true, probably be sitting out all of 3rd gen Axe-Fx products, which is fine. That's not to say these are bad or that you shouldn't buy them. It really just speaks to how much they nailed it with the AX8 and Axe-Fx 2. I think a lot of people are just gonna be like, good enough. And if I were, you know, had an Axe-Fx Ultra, I probably would have pulled the trigger by now. But if I had an Axe-Fx Ultra, the Axe-Fx 2 came out, I'd probably been like, we'll see what happens. So really, this is more praise for how much Fractal Audio supports their older products and how much they squeeze out of all of it to where you don't feel like you're being left behind immediately with every new release. So yeah, if I were you, fellow AX8 players, I wouldn't be selling off your stuff too soon to upgrade to this. That's assuming you'll even be able to, you know, export your presets and then convert it to this. Surely there'll be a, you know, a Fractal update for that at some point, but no guarantees. So yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts. I'm excited to see how this impacts the market. I'm excited to see new people enter the Fractal Audio ecosystem with a, you know, unit that I think is perfectly suited towards kind of that entry level, but it doesn't feel entry level. This is going to have a lot of power under the hood, as I've shown with this unit. But it's not really attacking all of the same market. They're kind of opening up a new one, and that's awesome. So wish it some great success. It's just they're not getting my $1,000 today. So with that fucking thing is so heavy. Thanks for watching, and we will see you hopefully in a more productive video next time. Bye.